Kim Yo-jong, sister of North Korea's leader, enjoyed media attention all over the world, somehow, especially in the United States. But North Korea is a murderous regime. Why is the media glamorizing her at the Olympics? And the American network NBC has apologized after one of its analysts drew anger for a comment during coverage of the Pyeongchang Olympics. And random attack leaves Koreatown grandmother with facial injuries. Why did this even happen? Hi, I'm Michael Won, your host for Michael Won's Op-Ed Live, and this is Ben Pak, former deputy for California Senate Pro Tem Kevin De Leon. And Ben, I might add, is also running for the California Board of Equalization seat. Well, let's get on to it and tackle our first topic. Well, you might already know that I'm not a fan of the media that much, and the approval rating for the media has been hovering around 20s and 30s if you check out the most recent poll of the media. Well, this is an op-ed from The Hill, and it says this, and I quote, "The latest example of backlash against the increasing tone deafness among some of the fourth estate occurred over the weekend during fawning coverage of North Korea's presence at the Olympic Games in South Korea, particularly as it pertained to North Korea's director of the Department of Propaganda and Agitation." Who runs that department exactly? The new it girl for the New York Times, CNN, Reuters, and ABC News, to name a few. Her name is Kim Yo-jong, the sister of dictator Kim Jong-un. Without a word, only flashing smiles, Kim Jong-un's sister outflanked Vice President Mike Pence in diplomacy. And I'll read just one of the headlines. Kim Jong-un's sister turns on the charm, taking Pence's spotlight. And that's from the Paper of Record. Paper of Record is, of course, the nickname for the New York Times. Your thoughts on this, Ben?
Let's not forget who North Korea is, okay? And the fact that they sent a rather or somewhat good-looking demure with a, I'm going to call it an evil smile. Okay, when she smiles, yeah, she kind of scares me.
You felt the chills.
And she is the Deputy Minister of Propaganda, meaning she's the one who sends out all these things to the North Koreans about evil America. The Americans are our enemy. South Korea is an enemy. So let's not fall for it. North Korea, I think they're masters when it comes to propaganda. This is almost like Stockholm Syndrome, where you start sympathizing with your captors and your torturers. And you know, even I've been following the Olympics. I've been watching the cheerleading squad. The media does not cover the fact that the average citizen is not being let into the stadiums because they are actually wooing and actually allowing the North Koreans to enter first, and then for them to be there. They are not allowing people to protest, and all this is going on. Everything that North Korea does and South Korea is supposed to not to do, we are doing in order to kind of cater to the North Koreans. Yeah. And to me, that is wrong, and you're kind of going away from democracy.
Well, I think the media should be ashamed of themselves too. I think they're, glamorizing her. What was that headline from the Washington Post? It said, "The Ivanka Trump of North Korea."
You know, they might have sent her to sort of give that effect. And but North Korea is still one of the most brutal regimes. And what is going on in their country, and because you see 230 cheerleaders, I think the delegation is almost 600. And of course, you only see the face of the delegation, but I don't know if you've been following. Next to the cheerleaders, you have this gentleman actually cheering the same way, which is sort of comical, but they're the bodyguards, and nobody can approach them. Even if you ask a question, nobody will answer. So to me, I think the media is doing this to kind of give some kind of news, but I think it's the wrong news.
I agree with you on that. I think the media, they're always, greedy for something newsworthy, and this is a newsworthy thing, and it was kind of unique, a different kind of gesture by the North Korea regime to send a female as one of their representatives, right? And but we have to understand that North Korea is a very secretive country, right? We don't even know who she is that much. Kim Yo-jong, they don't even know her official age. They say approximately around 30 years old. They don't even know her marital status. They don't know whether she's married or she's single. That's how secretive North Korea is. And I don't know. What I think is when I read all those papers, you know, the New York Times and Washington Post throughout the weekend, you know, just glamorizing her, I kind of felt this is how much they hate Trump. I mean, I just kind of felt that from that, you know, and then because Mike Pence is, you know, Trump's, you know, kind of representative. He was there to represent the United States, but the media has criticized Mike Pence for not standing up when the South and North Korean athletes, right, entered, and the media just, you know, bashed him. But I just kind of think, yeah, it's just the media trying to, you know, play some kind of narrative, and I think we should never forget that North Korea is a very murderous regime. You know, it's a dictatorship country, and there's a reason. There's also a reason why I think Kim Jong-un sent her. The sanctions, I think, has been working effectively. The UN sanctions, and it seems like they're economically hurt to such an extent that they had to do something. So why did she come? She, according to the New York Times, she delivered her brother's surprise invitation for President Moon Jae-in, right? So for a summit at North Korea, and she said this. She said that it's very important, right? She is said to have told, like this: the North and South relations will improve so fast that yesterday would seem a distant past. Do you believe that? Remember,
historically, this is what they've been doing. They bully, and then they kind of retract, and then we fall for it. Mm-hmm. And that's their MO. That's how they do it. Yeah. They talk a big talk, and then they kind of pull back, and then they end up getting their aid. Mm-hmm. You know, and money will be sent again to North Korea, but it doesn't go to the people. It goes directly to the top.
Of course, yeah.
Communist regime, and with that money, I mean, how did they actually ended up with a nuclear program? Mm-hmm. It was money that was sent, and even if you send grains, what they do is that they will put it on a ship and then send it to even a like worst off third country and then sell that for money. Mm-hmm. So I think South Korea is falling for it again. The current president seems to be a little bit too naive in the sense of how they're going about it. And I never thought I would be in a position where I'm somewhat defending, you know, Vice President Pence. But, you know, the media only wants to kind of show the tidbit, the fact that they were sitting like one in front of the other. Mm-hmm. I think that was also a setup by the South Korean government to, you know, have them talk or sort of to be able to capture something. And I think Vice President Pence just didn't go for it because I felt that he did not want to be put in that situation, and they forced him, and that's why he acted the way he did. Yeah, and I think, you know, he mentally prepared not to, you know, do a standing ovation or anything regarding that. And I think the reason, I think Moon Jae-in, he met like 4 times in 6 days with Kim Yo-jong. That's a report that I read. I don't know how many times, but I know they had lunch together. Yeah, but I do think since Kim Jong-un, I mean, we have to recognize that he is the leader of Kim Jong-un, whether he's a bad guy or a good guy. Regardless of that, of course, we all know that he's a bad guy. But still, if he invited Moon Jae-in, you know, the leader of South Korea, I think you know, it was a good thing for him to accept. You know, I don't think it's a negative for them to have a summit in North Korea. I wish that somehow we can, you know, find some kind of resolution, you know, in a peaceful. It should be done manner. In a neutral country. The fact that they're you disagree with him going to North Korea? But you know that former presidents did go there, like Kim Dae-jung went to North Korea before you, right? In the current climate, political climate, and what they're going through, them actually going to North Korea. So probably I'm more on the liberal side on this issue. It's possible. I agree with, because I'm an independent, because I agree with Moon Jae-in going to North. I think, you know, I think North Korea, Kim Jong-un is feeling the pressure. He's feeling the heat because Trump is not playing around. I really believe that Trump is not playing around with Kim Jong-un. I mean, they were even talking about
bloody nose attack, right? Just a surgical attack. When Trump administration mentioned that, or they leaked those kind of information, I don't think he's just kidding. I really think he means it. I mean, if you see that he's trying to follow through his campaign promises, I don't think he's just playing around. So I think Kim Jong-un now knows that, and he's trying to find some kind of a diplomatic way to get out of this situation. But I don't think what Mike Pence said to the Washington Post, he did an exclusive interview while taking the plane back to D.C. And he said that he would be willing to talk with North Korea,
which was a surprise.
Right? But I think United States would not budge until they give up their nukes. I don't think they would just lift up the sanctions just by saying we'll freeze the current nuclear weapons, or I think they have to just clear it all out, and they have to just let the U.S. or the UN inspect them probably once a month, or I think Trump administration is going to probably ask that. If you want to have your sanctions lifted, that's where you have to go. And Ed Royce said this. Ed Royce, congressman in Orange County. He said this, and he's one of the experts regarding North Korea. And what he said was, sanctions work the best against North Korea. They always bow down and want to talk. And I think it will work this time too. And the difference between, I think, the Bush and Obama administration is Trump is probably not going to back down and say, hey, if you just, don't shoot any more, ICBMs, or don't test any more nukes, we'll, lift up the sanctions. I don't think he's going to just, go there. I think he's going to probably pressure more harder and, try to, he prides himself of being a deal maker. So I'm kind of curious how this is going to play out this year.
Yet again, you're asking North Korea to give up their only bargaining chip they have.
But is that the only bargaining chip? I don't understand why that. Many people say that, but I don't see that as the only bargaining chip because they have not been attacked by United States or South Korea. It was always them, attacking.
But the fear of having that, the South side as well as the United States will be a little bit careful about approaching it, because they can actually strike the South or somewhere in the United States with the capacity of nuclear weapons. If they don't have that, what else do they have to bargain?
So you think that the Trump administration should accept, just by them saying we'll freeze and no more testing of ICBMs, and then please lift the sanctions, and you would take that deal?
In all honesty, I don't know what the answer is, because it seems like it's at an impasse. It's sort of like unable, because North Korea is not willing to give up, and their United States is not willing to do anything but for them to get rid of their nuclear program. So I really sort of curious to see what or how this is going to. That's why I had told you before, China plays a big role.
Yeah,
I don't think this can be resolved without Russia and China actually getting involved.
It's not going to be even resolved between just U.S. and North Korea.
Absolutely
China has to
not.
be involved. Yeah.
And the two Koreas kind of ironing it out between the two, that is absolutely not going to happen.
You're right. Yeah. It seems like Kim Yo-jong, she's a smart cookie. They say, back in 2001, when the Russian ambassador to North Korea asked Kim Jong-il which of the sons would become his successor, Mr. Kim said, all his sons are idle blockheads. It seems like he said that, probably in Korean. And he said that it was his daughters who he thought had the intellect and personality to be reliable successor. So Michael Madden, an expert on North Korea leadership, he said that. So
the way North Koreans do things, where one brother kills the other,
you're right,
to say maybe the sister will get rid of Kim Jong-un.
You don't know what's going to happen, and she can't. I don't think she's in, a safety seat throughout her life either. We don't know what's going to happen with North Korea.
He went as far as killing his half brother in a foreign country,
and an uncle,
yeah. So and other probably that we don't even know.
Yeah,
it wasn't one general actually executed for falling asleep in one of the speeches that he was giving. So I mean, we're talking a regime that just the average individual cannot even understand. And even if we were to make a horror movie, I don't think we can go as far as the way do things over there.
That was a great way to put it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll leave it at that. Okay, let's hop to our next topic. NBC, the national broadcasting company, faced major criticism for political comments one analyst made during the broadcast of the opening ceremony of the Pyeongchang Olympics. And now the network is apologizing. The controversy started when analyst Joshua Cooper Ramo, who was hired to bring historical context to NBC's coverage, noted how significant Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's visit was. He said this, and I quote, "Every Korean will tell you that Japan is a cultural and technical and economic example that has been so important to their own transformation." NBC immediately felt the backlash and fired Ramo. Your thoughts on this, Ben?
Well, you know, the fact that somebody who is the CEO of the Kissinger Group saying something like that, to me, it was...
Kissinger Associates, right? CEO.
And it was sort of like, did he really say that?
Okay.
But I think, you know, 4 years ago when the Winter Olympics were going on, Twitter wasn't there. And Instagram or any of this sort of media wasn't there. I don't think Kakao, which is one of the major way Koreans communicate in social media, wasn't there either. So when people make a mistake, I think in the past, you could have said something even more outrageous, and depending on how many viewers you had, people did notice or didn't notice. In this particular case, you know, it was broadcasted to literally billions of people, and then people took notice. If you're not a Korean, probably you just listen to it and then you just kind of like, it was an afterthought. But I've been kind of following after this news came out as to how many mistakes have been made.
By NBC?
Not only NBC, but an ABC affiliate in the East Coast, they put PF Chang instead of Pyeongchang in the
Which channel?
Is an ABC affiliate in the East Coast, and you know, things like that. And then Kerry Couric, actually during the opening ceremony, also made a comment about the Netherlands, that they're such good skater because they commute when the canals freezes. You know,
she said that.
Yeah, she said that. So you know, I think nowadays we pay more attention to what they say. And I think somebody, if they will bring, sometimes I think commentators feel that they have to say something because you cannot have like an dead space.
You're right, exactly.
And sometimes they will make mistakes. And we've seen throughout history of media how so many people have been fired because they feel compelled to say something. Even now, the two of us, you know, we'll talk about these issues, and then when sort of like I hit a roadblock, it's like, oh my goodness, what am I supposed to say next? And then the wrong things can come out. So
yeah, exactly. But you know, when Joshua Cooper Ramos said this, I don't know what I kind of felt there might have been. I don't know. I mean, I can't go to inside his brain and find that out, but there. I don't know whether he has some hatred towards Korea or whether he really loves, you know, Japan. Because I know some Americans who really love Japanese culture and who love Korean culture, you know. But he specifically mentioned the time period. Like, Japan was a country which occupied Korea from 1910 to 1945. For him to be specific, it kind of bothers you, you know. I was kind of bothered when he kind of mentioned that specific, you know, time period. And, you know, for him to say that Korea, you know, has everything to do for Japan, I mean, to rely on Japan, you know, because Japan was a cultural and technologically advanced and economic, you know, giant. So it is true. I mean, there might be some truth in that Korea probably, you know, a little bit copied how they advanced. But still, it wasn't like, we can't say it's because of Japan, you know. It's the Korean people. They diligently worked hard, right?
Of course.
You know, I mean, we have a strong work ethic. I mean, one of the prides of South Korea is like they have really strong work ethic, right? Asians in general, I think, has strong work ethic. Whether it's prejudice or not, you know, that's what many Americans view Asians too. They're good at academia, you know, they're good at working, you know, they do their stuff. They're very, they have integrity, you know, discipline, and you know. I wouldn't compare to other race, but that would, you know, bring me to some danger zone. But you know, that's the perception. And I think for him to specifically mention between 1910 to 1945, he didn't have to do that. You know, he could have probably turn some corners while talking about this. I mean, probably Japan, might have, been, we can say Japan was a pioneer to become an industrialized country, right, in Asia, right? We can say that. So probably, Japan somehow kind of opened the path, and other Asian countries, like Taiwan and, later on, like South Korea, they might have also, it gave them a little bit more opportunities. But he didn't have to mention that Korea was occupied from 1910 to 1945. I think that was a little bit, it bothered me.
I think whether it was scripted or something he said, or maybe at that very moment he just wanted to kind of share his vast knowledge about Asia. But, he could have made comments such as that with China, Philippines, or any other country that walked in through, the ceremony. But for him to actually pick the country that occupied, and then there is some deep-rooted sort of
yes, there's still some hatred there. Yeah.
Animosity.
Animosity.
And I thought it was sort of out of place, and then the wrong thing to say.
And because I think who is this guy's name? Joshua Ramo.
Yes.
I think he didn't. It's not like Germany apologized all over the world, right? About what the Nazi did to the Jews. Japan didn't really clearly apologize, right? I mean, they kind of apologized, but it's not like a clear, South Korea still wants clear,
specific issues like
apologies,
the comfort woman,
like the comfort woman issue. They want to pretend that it never happened or something like that. I think so. Seems like Joshua Ramo didn't know his history. If he knew about Asian history, about South Korea's history or Japan's history, he wouldn't have talked like this. But and especially when you're talking about, it is a fact that Korea was occupied. So if he wants to talk about those, I think he has to be politically correct. I don't like political correctness. I'm not a PC person, but I think in those kind of situations, I think it's better to use that PC card.
The context that he made that comment to me is sort of, I don't understand that this is the Olympics. We're supposed to be less of politics. Yes, maybe his expertise is politics, but it's just the fact that he picked that specific country, and then the knowledge of his history behind it. To me, it's like, why? Japan has a very, very large sort of like marketing budget to kind of educate other people as to what they're, to kind of clean up their image.
Yeah.
Is it possible that the Kissinger associates are somewhat part of their sort of marketing group or anything like that? I don't know. The fact remains that a lot nowadays, whatever you say on camera stays there. Therefore, people should be very careful. And I think you need to have sort of like a disclaimer, or sometimes, if I were to make a mistake right now, the best thing for me to do would be, oops, I'm sorry, that I said that. I don't know what came over me, but that is absolutely wrong. Instead of just going on and then later on trying to retract.
Which means that we need some kind of filter. It's like, when we say filter, it's kind of viewed as a negative, that you're not being free with your thoughts. But I think in certain situations you have to have filters, or you're going to get into big trouble, I think.
We see it all the time.
Exactly. And let's go to our final topic. And finally, 85-year-old Korean woman was assaulted in Koreatown on Saturday afternoon. Los Angeles police detectives are checking surveillance cameras to find the man who attacked this lady. The woman was walking near Olympic Boulevard and Vermont Avenue Saturday at 2 p.m. Her granddaughter, Eugene Ko, was with her and said a man randomly hit the woman in the face. The grandmother said she only remembers the man hitting her. The suspect is described as Hispanic, in his mid-30s, about 5 feet, 5 inches tall, and around 150 pounds. Ben, you're in law enforcement. Your thoughts on this sad event?
It just shouldn't happen. I don't know why it happened. The gentleman, at least on the photo, seems to be clean cut and doesn't seem to be like a person with mental issue or a homeless individual. So I don't know what prompted that behavior. And the fact that it happened in broad daylight, the fact that people did not really react it, to the whole incident is disturbing.
I think there was a report that he might be homeless, but we don't know for sure, right? Yeah, he might be homeless, but seems like he has some kind of mental issue, right? To just hit somebody out of the blue, right? Without any particular reason, right? And that's the thing. I mean, this isn't like the first time. There has been other incidents last year, right?
Remember, a Korean grandpa died in downtown LA, and he was attacked by a homeless. And I believe there was another Korean grandpa also. I mean, this does happen more than you think in LA.
Recently, right?
Yes, and I think a lot has to do sort of with the, and I'm not demonizing or I'm not saying that homeless are at fault, but the increase with homeless, who a lot of them do have mental issues. They are on the street without properly being treated. And a lot of people do suffer from schizophrenia as well as bipolar issues. And sometimes these people think that they look at somebody, and I've actually walked through Koreatown or downtown, and people are screaming, and then they have lunged at me, and then I get really scared. And that actually has happened to me as well. So, I think the government is trying to do something, is trying to somehow curb this issue, but with the increase of the homeless and then not being able to provide them with housing, not being able to provide them service, this is something that we're probably going to see more and more until there is a solution.
Okay, so last night when I read one report, it said a homeless guy. So I was thinking probably this all relates to the homeless issue that's going on in LA right now. I don't understand why California really, why Jerry Brown's approval rating is high, within Californians. I don't think he did a good job. I mean, look at the homeless in Southern Cal or Northern Cal, whether you go to LA and San Francisco, what do we suffer the most? Homeless issue, right? Is also the same in San Francisco. In San Francisco, they actually have a tour guide, for poop warning guide, because so many homelesses has been, they've been defecating here and there, so they had to dodge those kind of areas because of the, of the feces, because of the bad smell. This is because directly, related to homeless issue. I think there's something really wrong about what's going on in California. There's too many homeless. When we get out of this company, we see so many homeless out in K-Town or downtown, everywhere, right? And some people say that it's directly related to also mental issue, that they have some kind of mental issue. We don't know this guy, whether he's a homeless or whether he has a mental issue, but it seems like he does have some mental issue. We don't know whether he's homeless yet, but I kind of think he might be homeless. It's just my hunch. And we have to clear out, we have to do something about this whole mess, I think somehow it's increasing. Is it 55,000 now in LA County? Is it 30? Is it more?
It's like, remember, they had a homeless count a few weeks ago, and we're going to really see the numbers. But some put it at 80,000, some people even put it at over 100,000. Remember, there was a realignment of the prisons and then an early release through AB 109, Prop 47, I believe, was it. And when all that came about, the intention was good, but personally, I thought you would create this kind of situation. And one of the things that I always, I've been sort of critical about is that we do create legislation without really thinking things through. Like, for instance, the legalization of marijuana, it was approved by the people of California, but we really don't have a roadmap as to how to go about it.
Even City of LA was not, finished with their draft, beginning of this year.
So the realignment happened at a state level, but without really thinking what the impact was going to be. Remember, City of LA, we have the greatest services, and the climate is still better than most of the country. And even within California, LA has good climate. So during the winter and then during the harsh times, people will come to California because if you go to Skid Row, anybody who is homeless can get 3 to 4, 5 square meals a day easily. And then they provide shelter, they provide services. So Los Angeles is a good place to be a homeless individual.
And because of the climate and all that.
And all that, and the services. And at the same time, you know, there is so many, I think the government or the municipalities are having a difficult time handling all this, because otherwise so much of the budget and so much of the resources would have to be diverted for the homeless issue, and you know, the other parts of the city would be neglected.
I kind of think this, you know, okay, the climate for LA has been always good, right? It's not like it's all of a sudden, you know, being good, right?
No, it's always
right.
been
It's always been good, but the homeless has been increasing like dramatically.
Yes.
So I don't understand, you know, when Mayor Garcetti is thinking about like running for presidency, he didn't even take care of the city of LA, in my opinion. You know, I think he should have done a better job. During Antonio Villaraigosa's term, I don't remember, you know, the homeless being this much, you know. So I think it has something to do with the economy during the Obama administration. You know, I supported him back in 2008 and 2012, but I don't think he did a good job economically. I told you that, especially the middle class. It didn't help that much. So I think there was a lot of jobless people, and if you're jobless, there's a high percentage of those jobless would become homeless because they have to pay their rent or, you know, their bills, and if they can't pay their bills on time, well, what are you going to do? You're going to become homeless, right? And that's why I think this increase happened. I do think, you know, with the Trump administration, the tide is a little bit turning. That's why I think I was always for cutting the corporate tax from 35 to 21. And I saw some of those homeless people. They were like working a couple months ago, some of them, you know. Last year I talked with some of them. And one individual, he was reading a Time magazine, and I asked him, I mean, what happened to you? And he told me that he worked, but he lost his job, and it was he couldn't pay the rent, so that's how he became homeless. So it's directly linked to jobs, I think. Of course, mental issue is also there too, but I think it's more about jobs. And if you have the economy booming, I would think also in LA and probably, hopefully in San Francisco too, that the homeless population would drop. But it's at this point it's wishful thinking. But I really think it had something to do with the economy, and the middle class has been hurt.
I disagree there with you. I think has more to do with mental issues as well as the addiction of opioids and
addiction of opioids also
yes,
too.
Because if I have spoken and I have actually been talking to some of the homeless people, and seems like at least the ones that I've encountered, the majority do have some sort of
drug issues,
mental issues
yeah,
associated with an addiction to either alcohol or drugs. And yes, you do have those unfortunate people who they lost their job, and then it was a domino effect, and those people will get back on their feet, and then they'll be able to kind of not be homeless for a long time. But at the same time, you know, if you look and you actually take a tour through Skid Row, you'll see that the majority are suffering some sort of addiction. And I think that, like I've always said, you need to kind of look at the genesis of the problem and not just trying to resolve it at the end of it. Because then if you keep on just resolving things at the end of it, the supply is going to continue happening. And then you'll never stop it.
Yeah, so. but anyway, okay, opioids, I think mental issue has been always, you know, it's not like out of the blue that we have all of a sudden a whole bunch of mental patients, right? I mean, I think it was always there. I think it has more to do with drugs. I agree with you on that. And I think, I read a study that 80% of the drugs do come from Mexico. I'm talking about illegal drugs.
Oh, when we're talking about opioids, we're not talking about the illicit drugs.
But we're talking about illicit drugs too. I think they do a lot of illicit drugs.
It's a combination of both, but you do have to remember, corporate, who controls the pharmaceutical industry? The corporations.
Yeah, but I don't think the majority of homeless people, I wouldn't say majority, but the people who do drugs, I'm talking about illegal drugs. When I talk about illegal drugs, it's coming. A lot of them, 80% of them, are coming from Mexico. So that's why I think Trump administration is trying to, you know, block it with the wall. When people say the wall is not going to work, I see it clearly working. When you have, even today, they had a report like 500 people try to jump over to the U.S. So I'm not talking about just the illegal immigrants. I'm talking about even the drugs pouring in. We have to somehow stop that. But how do you think we can prevent this as a reserve officer yourself, you know, about this kind of, you know, back to this K-Town grandma issue? How can we prevent this kind of out of the blue attacks?
People have to be honest when they talk, and a lot of times I think remember, police work is not clean work. you are there because you are dealing with the issues of society that needs to be addressed. And you cannot actually deal with it with kids club.
Okay.
Sometimes you do have to kind of address it in a manner to subdue or subside the call that you go to. With that being said, I think like everything else, we do have to have an open dialogue where people have to be a little bit less sensitive to be able to address it. Because once again, on this issue, you have extreme left and extreme right that they're not really they're not having a conversation. And you do also have to, you know, body cameras and then all this recording, all that. You know, it does affect the performance of the police officers too. In the old days, you know, they were super proactive, and then is it possible that now they're not as proactive because they don't want to be recorded, or they want to be in a situation where they're being recorded? Because look, police officers are human beings, and they'll make mistakes, and a lot of times, whether they mean it or they don't, could be in a situation where they don't want to see themselves being, and then to kind of avoid that, is it possible that someone not being proactive and approaching? Not only that, an average police officer, when they're dealing with the homeless, there is actually no repercussion. You're just adding more paperwork into the system. So why engage or even give a ticket or do anything with a homeless individual if they're just there? In the old days, if you're a homeless person, you engage and then you kind of see if you can give help and all that. But I don't know. Yes, I am a reserve officer. I'm not somebody who is there on a daily basis to kind of see this day in and day out. But as a deputy to the Senate, I dealt with this issue from all aspects. And what I kind of found out and concluded is that everybody wants what they want, but nobody's really willing to give in a little to come to an agreement or to some kind of resolution. Everybody wants affordable housing, but you know, there's no money to give affordable housing. Everybody wants the police to kind of take care of it, but there is no resources for the police to take care of it. So, you know, bottom line is that people have to be open to the idea that something's got to give. You cannot just say, oh my God, how is this happening and how come nobody's doing anything about it? So.
Well, our viewers can see her picture here. When you saw the picture, you were horrified, right? I couldn't believe it. You know.
Unbelievable. I mean, she had to probably. I mean, she's what, about 90 pounds?
She was 85-year-old.
85,
6 days. I think this week she was gonna have her 86th birthday. Yeah. So
luckily, she's in good health. Yeah. And she was able to kind of take the hit and then, you know, survived
somehow,
it.
Yeah.
And that, at least on the photo, the suspect seems to be a burly guy. I heard that there's going to be a reward offered for the capture of this individual. And then even myself, I shared it on Facebook yesterday. And then I was happy to see that a lot of my friends on Facebook were sharing it. So I think it's just going to be a matter of time for us to be able to catch this individual.
If our viewers somehow have an information of the suspect, where do they have to call?
911. 911, and then let them know that is the suspect that from the incident in Koreatown that hit this grandma or this individual, and then 911 will know how to handle it.
Yeah. Well, we all hope and pray for the grandma's speedy recovery.
Yes.
Well, that's it for us today. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.